Activated mornings on WEFM 99.9 is on now.
Loosen up the lungs, boy. You ready? You ready?
Let's drink some warm.
Ready to go?
Yeah, man. Good morning, Simmons. And the easy time is now 9:21, and we have a special edition of Talk to Me this morning. We have Nothing is Off Limits. What? No Limits with Sehon Marshall. No Limits with Sehon Marshall. The number to call 457-9997. Also the number to WhatsApp, and we're live on YouTube and Facebook.
All right, at WFM 99 SVG. Don't forget to follow us on the other platforms, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Twitter. So a call is coming through. Let's take that at this time. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, good morning.
Good morning.
First of all, let me say my name is Dave Roberts. I sit without fear or favor. Because in this country, there is something called fear, even among our brightest people. Fear to talk, fear to indulge in critical conversation. Now I listened to a very painful story this morning, coming from the mother of a daughter. By the way, how old is the daughter? Could you tell me quickly?
10.
10 years old. Could you imagine that? Could you believe that? And you telling me we have love in this country? When I heard this morning that lady and she is like she almost gave up. She doesn't know what to do. She does not know what to do. And you telling me we have so much educated people in this country, right? And we don't know what to do? Nobody can bring a stop and some relief to this woman? We're a small population. Huh? I always remember when Glenn Jackson, of blessed memory, the first press secretary I think we had in this country, how he was found murdered, nicely put away in his old vehicle. We can't see nothing wrong in that. They bring Scotland Yard to find his killer. But let me say this, we in St. Vincent and Grenadines know who the killers are. It's like everybody know everybody in this country. A lot was said about the killing of Glenn Jackson. And yet no one was found guilty of his murder. So I use that as an example. There are many more examples I can use to show you how our society has become. Right now, Sehon Marshall saying how if this country still is.
Sehon's still here, so you can talk to him.
Hello?
Sehon is still here, so you can talk to him.
No, well, I'm talking. I don't want to talk directly. He could want to say. Because we have, that's how it is.
Mm.
But I use Glenn Jackson's name. We brought down Scotland Yard, the headquarters. Scotland Yard headquarters, which is London Metropolitan Police. And you see how much we still believe. We had to go out there from our former colonial masters to come and solve our crime for us. But that's just being hypocritical. We know who Glenn Jackson. I don't know. But I have to say we in the plural sense. We need critical people, critical thinkers in this country. Who we're looking up to for answers. We can't get it from them because they're all part of this. What's the adjective I should use here? This system. We can't get the answers from those people who should know and who pretend not to know or who. So I am so hurt. I think I'm living over time. That's how I feel about myself because of what is going on. How can I be safe when we have so much murder, so much killing in this country? I thank God that I have taken ill. Well, I am not wholesome as I used to be, and I give thanks and praises for that. But where I am, I know I am not even safe. Because of what is going on in my society. Once, thank God, I enjoyed this society in my earlier times because I had a wonderful time. But to know that I'm coming to the end of my tenure here on earth and to hear what is going on, how can that make me feel happy? And that's why I warn you young people, I warn you, Christal, Ari, and all those young voices I'm hearing, not to be misled, because there are people who are trying to mislead you all in this society, in this country. King Austin sing a calypso, which you all could have played. The price of progress is very high. That's a wonderful calypso, looking at life and all of that.
Okay.
So I just wanted to ventilate my feelings. Now I might get costs run down, pulled down for all of this. But if I have something to say, I am going to say it while I do not damage anybody's character, because that has become a norm in this country, to damage one another's character. So how could we have love? How could we have respect and all of that? Anyhow, I have said about full. Thank you for having me, and let me hear the response, because when I speak, I want the whole world to hear me. Thank you. Have a good day.
All right. Thank you. Take care.
Did you hear the fear in his voice? You heard the absolute fear and trembling in his voice when he spoke? You heard it, Harry? A mouthful said in fear and trepidation.
Where are we going with this?
I don't know. No, I know where Sehon is going with it, and I don't
Listen.
disagree with him. Because
look.
I always hear persons in the diaspora and older persons come with this. I am so afraid. What is happening in St. Vincent? The place is so crazy. I don't feel afraid.
Is it not?
Listen to me.
Is it not?
The
Is
persons,
it not
the persons
crazy?
involved in these killings, in the
There was a time in St. Vincent the Grenadines under the party that Dave support, and he misses the days of that party, where people couldn't talk at all. Where your vote had you transferred to Union Island. Yes,
that's
Hold on.
before my time. I don't know.
Hold
when,
on.
So I really wanted to ignore all of that, because really and truly, anybody who I'll just say this generally, there's a set of people who used to strive to, or once strived to be elites in this country, and we lived in a time where the government perpetuated that type of fake elitism. But with the breaking of those barriers, and with poor people's children in all spheres, teachers, nurses, doctors. No, remember those were the careers back then that you could aspire to. But as a poor boy in Chateaubelair, I couldn't aspire to be a doctor because my doctor didn't have my kind of hair. You know what I'm saying, Harry? And I couldn't aspire to be a dispenser, that's what they call it then, a pharmacist. You know, and the principals of the schools in North Leeward were brought in, Westwick Williams and Mr. Shallow from Yambo and so on, or principals of Pittibdale School. Because poor people weren't good enough for those type of things. And now, you go in Chateaubelair and 5, 6, within the last 20 years, or less, much less, doctors come out to North Leeward. And I could call the name. You understand? And engineers coming out to North Leeward. And so the fake elitism that allowed them to call and speak with their polished accents has disappeared. And it burning them.
No, in response to that, Sehon.
I'm just saying.
In response to Sehon or in response to Dave?
In response to Sehon.
Oh.
I do agree that the government has done a lot for education for the past 20 years since they've been in
Not just
power.
education.
And,
across the board.
in job opportunities,
Everything. Yeah.
in
Housing.
housing.
These days,
it's
the
20
big,
years.
the big house in the area is no longer Mr. This and Mr.
Yes.
This own. It's
So
like a
it's-
young man own.
It's 20.
or
It's
is it
been
bank on? But
it's
let's
been- it's in
continue.
bank
That's
on,
been-
but
It's
in
bank
20
on.
in 20 years, that's expected of a government. I'm not taking away from it, but it's been 20 years. So I expect the government to improve
when people
in
say
a lot
that,
of
though,
those
when people
areas.
when people say that though, I always say it's unfair because if I go back to the 17 years of the NDP, you didn't see that level of growth or improvement between 84 and 89. So, for example, in 1984, when the NDP won, the minimum wage was $85 for a domestic, for example, who lived in, and $145 for a domestic who didn't live in. In 17 years, it moved from 85 to 140, and from 145 to 200 in 17 years.
No,
Hold on. Over the same 17-year period, those same wages have tripled. They were not even doubled in 17 years, but they've been tripled in the same 17 years on the ULP. Now, you can't tell me it is expected because it didn't happen in 17
yeah,
years.
but what I would say in response to that, if that is the case, then that means in the 17 years that government fell short.
failed miserably.
I would say fell short.
Let me come in the
If
middle.
that is the case, yes, Christal.
Let me
It's the
come in
case.
the
It
middle.
is
Let me
the
come in the
case.
middle, right? Now,
Or
to
we could talk
compare-
about, we could talk about zero housing program in 17 years, as opposed to over 1,000 houses in the same period under the ULP. We could talk about how many graduate teachers were in schools then, 4 at the end of 2001, as opposed to hundreds now. We could talk about 40% of our students going to school in 2001, as opposed to universal access now.
We can talk about that, but we cannot pretend that the elitism is gone. There are still certain persons who have certain power and control in this country, and they look a certain way. Their hair is a certain way, as you said earlier, and they carry the same surnames.
But there isn't. What there isn't now, Ari, there isn't now that situation that says only those people can aspire and only those people can be.
I won't disagree with that.
Right. So that now, when you go in the courtroom, remember, Ari, back then, is the lawyers were the sons and daughters of lawyers, and doctors were sons and daughters of doctors. That is no longer the case. You understand what I'm saying? So what has happened now is the young people, and the good thing is they can see. What is happening now, though, is that the young people are demanding more because, as the PM would put it, we are in a permanent state of dissatisfaction. And that is fine. Because what it means is people want more. Yes? So that in my day as a young man, when I just started to teach, people were comfortable being qualified teachers. So you go college, you're a qualified teacher, and people were okay. A lot of people didn't. Of course, part of that had to do with opportunities as well. But people retired as qualified teachers. Now, people talking first degree and masters.
Well, okay, so
And
that
part
might
of
be
that is because of opportunities available.
opportunities,
Yes, but also it's
personal.
yes,
Personally, you
that's
want
the
to
point.
advance
That's the
as far
point.
as
That's the
possible.
point.
Or number 3, the higher learning you get, the more money you make.
Naturally.
Internal and external. But just to point out the time that, boy, I thought that we weren't going to touch on anything political, but here we are.
Political as policy.
Political, tomato.
You see, now you're going freak now.
No. Listen, it's not that I afraid to talk, It's not that I afraid to talk. I don't have an interest in it. So if I'm not well versed in a topic, I'm not going to dive into the topic.
Right. So, okay. Could we also say, while there has been a lot of advancements over the past 21 years, is it, can we ask, could we have been higher or further developed in a sense, as opposed to where we are now? And who do we measure against?
And that's a fair question, Christal. But whenever we ask that question, we also need to ask it within the context of resource limitation. So you would say, could we be further along in X? And we could have been, but it meant that probably would have sacrificed A, or we had to sacrifice Z, because we do have resource limitations. then let me give you one example. In 1998, 1999, when the World Bank came here and they were dealing with education and so forth, the issue of universal access to secondary education came up. And the then government agreed with the World Bank that this is not something we can deal with now. Let's consider this in 2030. Now, mind you, this wasn't let's implement it in 2030. It was let's consider it in 2030. Let's look at it again then. Anything could have happened in 2030 when we look at it. It could be, yeah, boy, we're ready to implement. Or we still ain't reached it yet. So let me push it off until 2035 or 2040. So to the question I ask you is, to the question you ask about could we have been further along, I respond to it in this way. Had the NDP still been in office, would we have been experiencing the education revolution in its entirety where we have universal access? Absolutely not, because they would not have even begun to consider universal access to secondary education yet.
How are you so certain that
Because I just told you.
Okay,
their agreement and decision was we're going to consider it in 2030.
But things could have changed between then and now, right?
We had it in 2005.
Mm-hmm.
That's when we implemented it. So clearly, we were 25 years ahead in terms of universal access to secondary education, had we not, as opposed to us having the NDP in office. We could talk about the international airport. That wasn't something on their mind.
At the time, who's to say they couldn't have thought about it sometime down the road?
And that's the thing. We can always go into the what ifs, but we can only use what we have.
And the fact that we can only use what we have because they are not in office.
And even the book written by former Prime Minister James Mitchell laments that as well. So if you use those circumstantial attributes, you could sit yourself quite confidently, boy, chances are, if the NDP was still in office, we wouldn't have an international airport. So we wouldn't have universal access. We wouldn't have the education revolution. We wouldn't have an international airport. The NDP continues to say, well, first of all, in 17 years, they didn't build any house. And they believe that is a private sector. So chances I wouldn't have the housing program that we've had either. Mm-hmm. You know, we know what happened with the hospital. They block off the road. Let me give some context. You know, years ago, the road to North Leeward, or to Leeward rather, you used to drive straight down, past the gas station, and then you'll turn right where the ambulance goes in the ramp. That was the road. The hospital was on one side. That was the road. You had shops, houses, and so on, daddy shop, and so on. That was the road. Mm-hmm. It was the brilliant NDP government that blocked off drains, blocked off gutters to expand the hospital, cut off the road, put the road where it is now, so that now, whenever rain comes really heavily, the water, you know, if it's one thing about water's come back and claim its path. The water now floods the hospital. And it amazes me when politicians in the NDP would lament what is happening in the hospital when it floods. When everybody knows that they created that problem.
You should have fixed it, man. I don't know. That's not for me to decide.
So
you guys are the engineers.
So the thing is now, you need to fix that.
They made a mistake. You guys have not. Okay, I'm not saying you guys. The UOP has not made any mistakes. UOP has not made any mistakes. The cross country road finished yet? No.
A mistake.
The three buildings for the mass men in that place, Roseau, is not finished because it can't finish. Isn't that a mistake?
The problem with the traffic flow in Joshua Center.
No, that's a mistake. It's not finished.
That's an unfinished project.
It's not going to finish, Sehon. Let's be real. That's not going to be finished.
So what would happen, which is what the ULP has proven time and again, is that if it is recognized that that location is not viable, is not the best, then another location will be found.
How many years has passed? Why did it even start?
Christal.
Let me just accept that was a mistake.
No. Well, the area may not have been the best area. That's fine. You could accept that.
Right. So that was the mistake.
But so you're comparing that to the hospital? That's what you're saying?
No, I'm saying I'm saying,
there are
I'm
mistakes,
saying, right?
There are
Mistakes are made by each
there are
political
mistakes and then
party.
there are mistakes.
What is the difference between
No,
the two mistakes here?
There are mistakes. You know what I mean?
Mistakes.
Ari, there's an oops.
Still
And then
a
there's a
mistake.
stoops. You know what I'm saying?
Still a mistake.
You know what I hear trying
Still
to
a
find?
mistake.
The story with Carlos James recently, and I know I saw it somewhere, but I don't
His
remember what he
mistake?
said. No, he was saying that he needs, or there's going to be more money pumped into renovating our tourist attractions sites. Tourist sites. That was recent news,
I
right?
think he said they need to be fixed now. Something like that. I think that was the headline.
Now, in my opinion, I feel like with the airport, and I'm in the minority with this, that it was the cart before the horse. I felt like we should have improved the tourist sites.
Actually,
and
they've
then,
been improved.
We only
lot.
wanted the tourist sites, eh?
A lot.
Really? They didn't exist before ULP government?
In terms of what they were there and
Renovating? Oh, okay.
No. I'm talking about in terms of putting the washrooms and those type of things. It was the
That
ULP that did
Falls
that.
in New Bridge.
Okay.
Black
Yeah,
Point, Waraku, those are all projects of
Ravaku
the
actually
ULP.
now has a playground, little playground.
Those are all projects of the ULP.
Okay.
Waraku
Black
wasn't like that
Point.
before 2001. Black Point wasn't like that before 2001. As a matter of fact, I remember when we were opening up Black Point, I think that was 2010. I remember Dilky Balcom, my schoolmate, coming into the pickup and speeding up and scratching up and so on, creating a scene. So those were all projects that were done by the ULP, and they need to be renovated over time because of
wear and tear.
wear
Which
and
is
tear.
natural.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Question: Union Island. Was that a Union Island project or was that a
Which
government?
project exactly?
The bridge. Sorry. When you walk over, what's that place called again?
Yeah,
oh
I
my
know what you mean.
gosh!
I know what you mean.
Yeah, everybody goes there to take a lot of
I
pictures.
think there was a group, I believe, down there that did some work with the regaining the swamp, because again, that was another colossal failure of the NDP.
I was saying yes to that.
A marina down there. No,
I was saying yes to
they tried
that.
to do a marina and it messed it up completely. It was an ecological disaster, and there's a group, environmental group, that did some work to restore the mangrove and so forth, and now they build the bridge, and it looks a lot.
I can't remember the name of the
it was
group, but it's
horrible.
on the sign.
Yeah.
There.
So yeah. Look, the thing is, Ari, Christal, listeners, it's always a fair question if we look at where we are, and we'd always compare, and there's that need to say we could have been, even in our own personal lives. You know, we'd sit back and say, boy, by now I could have done so and so. I could have done have my house. I could have done married. Or I could have done have a family and so forth. Had we not done X, Y, or Z, you know. But if we look at the trajectory, what happened 17 years prior to the ULP taking office, and what the ULP has done, considering what they met, what they did in this. I'm not even going to the 22 and a half years. I'm talking, let's give it the same 17 years. If you look at what happened in 17 years, we built the Rabaka Bridge, we did the education revolution, we did the international airport. I mean, and you could rattle these things off we completed over 1,000 low-income, middle-income, and no-income houses. Hundreds of teachers and other public servants got assistance to do their studies, whether it's locally and so forth. Hundreds of scholarships were negotiated by the government and so on. If you look at what happened during the same 17-year period, anybody who's just observing would say it's chalk and cheese.
You know what would be said in this moment? If the NDP was in office, the crime rate would not have been so sky high.
You know, sometimes you know, when I hear
No, we can't get carried away, because
No,
the
we're
time
not gonna
now
get carried
is
away, but I'm
9:44.
no, but hear this,
It
let me
has
just say
been
this.
said
Let me just say this.
before.
Let me just say this, right?
Uh-huh.
There was a time when, in this country, when a lawyer on a carnival morning took a pistol and shot his girlfriend right in front of the barracks.
I've heard about that.
Right in front of the barracks.
Heard about
Think about
that.
that. Think about that.
One.
So the point is,
I want to respond to that, by the way, time.
people have committed heinous crimes, and if people if people have decided that they're going to commit crimes, they will. I think what we have to work on would be investigations. You know, having proper charges laid, and allow the judicial system to do its work, to have a conviction and so forth, and making sure that their sentences that are worth the crime, as it were, and also ensure that there's rehabilitation for offenders, so that when they go in, they pay the time, but they are rehabilitated before they come back into society. And that's what we need to work on, as opposed to trying making issues of crime a political something.
See, and I'd really love it if you came in more often. Because no, there's a lot I want to talk about. But unfortunately, we don't have time. We already went a bit over time with the community dateline. So we're going to do the community dateline very quickly and wrap up Activated Mornings for this morning.